Good morning, my fellow light explorers. Today I'm at the Narrows in beautiful Zion National Park. So the Narrows is one of my favorite spots in the world to do landscape photography. It's funny actually, before I came to Zion in 2013, I used to travel extensively to Yosemite like every few months, and I really thought Yosemite was the best park there is. But in 2013 I made my first trip to Zion National Park, and I was completely bowled over. Each time I come to Zion, I definitely hike the Narrows, and today actually is not too bad, because right now, since July 1st, the park system has incorporated a reservation system for shuttles, which sucks in a way for people who don't have reservations. But those of us who manage to get our reservations, it's pretty convenient, and they've reconfigured the buses to have 6 feet of distance between people and require masks, etc. Okay guys, here's location number 1. I have the tripod in the water, and the idea is to have those 3 rocks in the foreground right there, and then I have the rapids going towards the wall, and it's an ultra wide. I think it's around 14 millimeters. We'll check right now. So let's take a look at the composition in the viewfinder and see how it looks. Okay, so yeah, it's at 14 millimeters, f16, 1.3 second exposure, ISO 64, and you can see that I have the rocks in the foreground, the rapids going towards the cliff wall, and the cliff in the background. I added one lone tree on the right side to give it a little more balance, and let's take a photo and see how it looks. Alright, not too shabby. One of the great things about the Narrows is that it's in a slot canyon, right? And so you can come here a few times, the same location, but the light will never be the same. You'll always find something different about your light, even with the same composition. So I highly recommend to come here at different times of the day, different seasons, see what works for you, and just have fun, It's such a great hike. Right now, there are barely any people. I saw around maybe 10, 12 people go ahead of me. I was busy shooting the video, and there may be around 6, 7 people behind me, but the crowds will increase as the morning progresses. But then by around 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the crowds pretty much die, or most folks, they try and stay at the first mile of the hike. And the further up you go, the further up Wall Street, the fewer people you'll encounter. When I came to Zion the first few times, I would carry a full bag of lenses, 14-24, 24-70, 70-200. But ever since the last 2 or 3 years, I'm really into my ultra-wide 14-24 from Nikon, which I normally use between 14 and 20 millimeters to give that exaggerated perspective. So I've stopped carrying my 24-70 and 70-200 for the past few times I've been here in the Narrows, and I feel I really haven't missed any shots. Besides, in the fall one time I saw this great shot far away near Wall Street, which would have looked cool with a 70-200, but it wasn't something that was it wasn't something that blew me away. And it's a lot to carry this gear in the Narrows, because I highly advise carrying a dry bag and keeping your camera gear in that. Now, you could rent a dry bag from one of the outfitters in Springdale, but they charge something like $10-12, and you can get these great Earthpack dry bags, like 30-40 liters, for around $20-25. And they also come with a little case, waterproof case for your phone. So I just bought a dry bag from Amazon, and I've been using that since then. Regarding my gear, my apparel, I again used to rent the shoes and the neoprene socks and pants, etc. from the outfitters, but it started growing expensive really fast. So I bought a set of neoprene socks on Amazon, and also neoprene pants, and each cost something like $20. So I've had those since the last year or so. They've served me well. And I also bought a stick, which the outfitters charge $10 to rent, from Home Depot actually. And I bought a broom handle, which works really well. It cost around $6, and the Home Depot guy was like, "What do you want this for? Just a handle. Do you not want the head?" And I said, "No, I'm going to Zion to hike the Narrows." And he was like, "Whoa, that's pretty cool." And I never thought of that. So for $6, I mean, it's worth the investment. And I've had the stick now for around 7 or 8 hikes. So I highly recommend getting your own gear if you plan on doing a lot of these hikes. And honestly, if you're doing coming to Zion or hiking in the water like Canara Falls, etc., it's worth investing the $50 initially to get the neoprene socks and the pants and the stick, so you have them going forward. For shoes, I bought Columbia's $40 water shoes, and they've served me really well. They drain quickly and really light, and they have good grip on the boulders below the river. Okay, so now I'm at location number 2. This location's a very cliched location. A lot of people take photos out here, and what I've done is I have my camera set at 16 millimeters on my 14-24 lens. I'm really up close to the rapids, as you can see, because I want the rapids to be right in your face and running diagonally across the frame. That tree is going to be in the upper third of the frame. So let's go and check out how it looks from a composition perspective, and I'll talk to you about framing and focusing. Okay, so my composition, as you see, has the water flowing in the front diagonally across the frame. I have the tree on the upper third of the frame, and I have a focal length of 16 millimeters, an aperture of f16, and a shutter speed of 1.3. So I think this should be a good composition. I also have a CPL on my lens to cut out reflection. Now CPL is never good for an ultra-wide lens because the sky has this weird band across it. But it's great for cutting out reflections and showing the rock below the water. Okay, so let's talk about what I intend shooting at the Narrows. My goal in the Narrows is to show the vastness of the Narrows and capture a lot of the light that changes across the Slot Canyon. So I'll mount my 14-24 lens on my Nikon D850 and essentially find locations where I can go low, have a foreground interest right in front of my lens. Like I told you, the 14-24 and ultra wides have a very exaggerated perspective. So I have a rock or another element in the foreground, and then I'll have the Slot Canyon in the back, lit up hopefully with some awesome light, as you'll see going forward. I do use a circular polarizer on my lens, the 14-24. Prior to last year, I had a Lee filter, which I barely use because it's so cumbersome and it's huge. But I bought this Wonder Panna kit for $200 on Amazon, and it is amazing. And so I just leave it on my camera and my lens at all times. So the one thing I'll tell you about the Narrows is that if you are hiking in towards Wall Street and you find a location that's really cool and the light's awesome, but you're thinking, you know, I'll come back on the way out and stop and take my shots, I would highly advise you to stop right there, take your shot on the way in, because the light here changes so fast that by the time you come back here, it's very possible that the direct sunlight's falling on the water and completely washes out your landscape photo. So I don't know about you guys, but for me, I like to have photographs or compositions where the sun is not lighting up the canyon directly, but there's indirect reflected light that's falling on the canyon walls, making it glow orange. And I also don't like to have any direct sunlight on my water. Number 3, and my camera and tripod all set up for the shot. It's on a 14-24 lens, around 14mm focal length. I want an ultra wide shot, and the goal is to have those rocks in the foreground right up in your face, and the water from here leading up to the big rock called Floating Rock, and to have these two cliffs in the background. Now, let me show you the composition and I'll talk to you about the lighting. So, the composition is going to be something like this, where you have these rocks in the foreground and the water will be milky white leading up to the big rock, and the cliffs will be in the background. Now the great thing is that currently the light is direct sunlight, and that's falling on the cliffs and on the water, washing out the color. But here's where timing's crucial. If you notice, this is facing south and the sun actually is going behind those cliffs, and once the sun disappears behind those cliffs, it hits the east side cliffs, which reflects the light off and lights up the west side cliff with reflected light. So in about half an hour to 40 minutes, the entire west side cliff and this rock will glow a bright orange, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And at the same time, the water will not have any direct sunlight, so that's the perfect ideal landscape photo for me. The water is clean, there's no direct sunlight, the colors show up. I have a CPL mounted on my 1424, and I'll move it very, very slightly so that I take away some reflections, but not all. I want some kind of milky substance to the water. And yeah, waiting for the next 40 minutes to an hour. There are some cloud cover and clouds are passing by, but hopefully I get one or two shots with no clouds in the picture, and it lights up the entire background and the rock orange in color. So let's wait and see. Meanwhile, let me show you how I focus a landscape photo. Okay guys, so here's my composition, and as you can see, I have the rock in the background. I have these three small rocks in the foreground, and I've got a bunch of water that's going up towards the big rock. If you notice the red dots or specks on my monitor, that's from focus peaking. And if you have that feature, do enable that in your camera, because that makes focusing very easy. Now, the trick to focusing is not to use autofocus, but to use manual focus. So what you do is you make all your settings absolutely manual, turn the AF off, and then what you do is you actually zoom in using your zoom button to some point on the camera, and then using your manual focus ring on the camera, you simply rotate the focus ring till you get the object in focus. You don't want to use AF for landscape photography. So once you have that in focus, if you have focus peaking enabled, you'll see a bunch of reds or blues depending on what color you've chosen for focus peaking, and your camera is now in focus. Your lens is now in focus. The light's turning very interesting. Check this out. It's turning into a bright orange color on the west side cliff, and the east side still has sunlight on it. So I'm waiting now for sunlight to go away completely, and the west side, east side cliff and the floating rock will soon be orange, glowing a bright orange color, and that's when I'll make the shot. The water also has no direct sunlight now, so it's getting to be perfect conditions. It's really windy, but luckily we have no trees around, so it won't show up. But this looks to be an amazing shot. So like I said, be very cognizant of timing. Sometimes you'll pass by some structure or landscape where you'll feel like, oh, it's not really all that impressive, but it could be impressive 2 hours later. So think about the sun's location and where it would go eventually, and would that contribute to a better shot if you waited for 2 more hours. So that's the shot right there, and I can't wait to show it to you guys. The light finally has turned magical. Take a look. The west side cliff is completely orange. The east side cliff, the sunlight's gone completely. The The direct light is not falling on the water anymore. The floating rock is not lit up as I hoped, but it should be fine in the image. So let's look at the composition and take a photo to see for ourselves. So that, my friends, is what it's looking like right now. Looks pretty amazing. Let's take a shot and see how it turns out. It's gonna be a 5-second exposure. The light's quite low and I'm at f16 and ISO 64. Okay, that looks really, really incredible. So I'm so glad I waited. I guess my point is that timing is everything, and at times you might feel the light is not right, but 2 hours later the light might change. So do come back and check it out. So I'm now in a section of the Narrows called Wall Street, and I found this great location with water and the cliffs. So this is how it looks. So my idea is to have these boulders and these rapids in the foreground, and using a low shutter speed of around 1 second to get a milky effect on these rapids, and then have these cliff walls glow orange. Wall Street, and check this light out. It is absolutely incredible. The back wall is completely lit up with reflected light. It is beautiful. There are too many people today, so I can't get a proper clean shot, but let me show you what I've got so far, and we can go from there. Maybe I might take a shot with low shutter speed and see to blur them out. So let's check out my composition. So this is my composition right here, and you can see it's ultra wide at 14 millimeters. I have a rocks in the foreground and I've got the glow in the back, and I'll take a shot and see how it looks eventually, but it is looking absolutely gorgeous. So I just finished the hike off and arrived back at the trail. I'm hiking back to the shuttle stop, and it was a really pleasant hike, and in the morning there weren't many people, but coming back right now, goodness gracious, like one of those scenes from The Mummy, you know, when a whole bunch of people are going Imhotep, Imhotep. Felt a bit like that, but yeah, heading home now. guys, so I'm back in my car. I took the shuttle post my hike to the Narrows, and the shuttle service was great, no issues whatsoever. I think the crowds were a little iffy, so going in the morning, like I told you, we had around 10 or 12 people hiking the Narrows with me. Was very, very nice, very few crowds, got great shots. But on the way back, around 1 o'clock or so, there were at least 100 people heading into the Narrows, so pretty crowded. But getting the shuttle from the trailhead back to the parking lot here was not an issue, because I think everyone is going in and not coming out. So a couple of thoughts about timing. I still feel the Narrows is better attempted early in the morning. And the reason is because the first 2 miles in the river are essentially in the shade, and only the cliffs start to glow around 7:38 in the morning with the reflected light, and there's no direct light falling on the water, so the colors aren't washed out. But by around 10:30 or so, I found that light was everywhere, the water was washed out, and there was direct sunlight falling on the cliff, so you weren't getting that beautiful glow on the cliffs. So if I had to go again, I would probably take the first shuttle, the 6 o'clock shuttle, 6 a.m. shuttle, so you're there by 6:45, and you can start your hike around 7 in the river, that is, because the first 15-20 minutes will be that 1 mile riverside walk. So yes, I would say go for it, go in the morning, and then plan to spend the whole day if you can. I mean, that's the best, because the light changes all the time. Apart from that, was an awesome day. Some great photos which you've seen, I think. And yeah, that's it. I plan to be back here again sometime next week or the week after, I think, because the new moon will be taking place around July 17th or 18th, and that's when the Milky Way photography really starts, dark skies. So I'll be back in Zion. I've got 3 or 4 places earmarked for Milky Way photography, which I can't wait to show you. So I'll show you those locations. One of them is about 3 hours hiking from Lava Point, and it's an awesome place to take photographs, but it's highly desolate and highly remote. So we'll see if I want to go to that location alone. Otherwise, I'm hoping a friend comes with me. All right then. Until next time, this is the Light Explorer signing out of beautiful Zion National Park. As always, like, share, subscribe, and if you didn't like the video, leave me a comment below letting me know how I can improve the video going forward.